Just joining us, my name is Amber Falgo. I'm the Northern Nevada Manager with Battleborn Progress, and I'm very happy to be here with you all tonight. So welcome to our AB286 Roundtable. We have done a lot of work getting this bill to the stage that it's at already, and we are prepared to do even more work. Currently, the bill has been read a second time in the Senate, which is fantastic. We can celebrate that as a win. We will now be headed to Senate General File. That is awesome. But what we need from you all, and we will get these links in the chat as we progress, is we need folks to call their senators and encourage them to positively get this thing out of the full Senate and onto the governor's desk, because that's the end goal, right? We want this bill passed. We want to make sure that our communities are safe and that ghost guns are not being proliferated across Nevada and border states. That is unacceptable. So I will encourage you all to click that link and make sure that you give your senators a call and tell them, hey, I really want to see this get through. So I would like to kick it to Tanya Shart. She is with Brady, and we have been working very, very closely on this bill. She is absolutely wonderful. Tanya, tell us a little bit about your work that you've done, and then I'll kick it to a couple questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amber. I appreciate that kind introduction. And I do want to introduce myself. I'm Tanya Shart. I'm the legal counsel and director of state and federal policy at Brady. I want to thank you all for having me today. I'm so happy to support Battleborn Progress. They've been such leaders in gun violence prevention in Nevada. Also want to, in particular, thank Assemblywoman Hadiki for her relentless leadership and stewardship and moving this important legislation forward. We're really excited about this bill. We think it's important not only in Nevada, but around the country. It's truly them taking leadership in terms of preventing the proliferation of these firearms all over the country. So excited about this.
As we are, thank you so much for all of the hard work that you've done. It has been incredibly impactful on moving this bill forward. So tell us a little bit about why ghost guns are so dangerous to communities across the United States.
Sure. So ghost guns are homemade firearms, often assembled using unregulated parts and kits. We kind of relate it to like IKEA furniture. But ghost guns are guns. And once they're assembled, they look, feel, and function like any other gun, whether it's a Glock or an AR-15, they are just as deadly. The difference is that they are completely unregulated and untraceable. Ghost guns circumvent almost every state and federal law, including, and most importantly, background checks. Because there are no background checks, anyone, including prohibited purchasers, a person subject to a restraining order, even a teenager, as you'll hear later today, can buy the parts to easily build a ghost gun online, at a gun show, or at a gun store, no questions asked at all. Also, a gun trafficker buy any number of parts and build any number of guns and traffic them into communities. Ghost guns are also unserialized, meaning they can't be traced by law enforcement, which means that for those who wish or plan to engage in any kind of crime, or again, for gun traffickers who wish to traffic firearms, they are perfect crime guns. There is no serial number to trace the ghost gun back to the user or trafficker. That is really what makes them so dangerous. They need to be treated like firearms, or they need to be banned. And what is so scary is that they're even marketed as unregulated and untraceable. So the ghost gun industry has essentially, they're trying to appeal to a certain kind of customer, one who wants to avoid a background check, serialization, or even just a face-to-face encounter with a gun dealer. So we know that ghost guns are a huge and dangerous loophole. And in recent years, the fear about the proliferation of ghost guns has really come to fruition. We don't have all the ghost gun data that we wish we did, but what we do have is pretty scary. Ghost guns have been used in all sorts of violent and deadly crimes, including domestic violence incidents, school shootings, mass shootings, the killings of at least 4 police officers, and they've been recovered in possession of members of extremist and white supremacy groups. Also, ghost guns are being recovered in exponential numbers in cities where historically trafficked firearms have led to a disproportionate amount of gun violence. So ghost guns are now being trafficked into these communities. And as we've seen gun violence increase across the country in this past year, we've also seen the recovery of ghost guns increase. There's a reason for that. So I think it's fair to say that the risk of failing to take action on ghost guns is no longer speculative. They are being used in crime and people are dying, and it's getting worse and worse and worse every day. So it's very important to pass this legislation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Tanya. And I just want to say, because I did not mention it at the very top, we will be recording tonight's presentation, so we can send that out to folks. This is a very special event that we're doing, so we wanted to make sure that we caught everything that is going to happen. So you actually lead me into kind of the second question, which is legally, how are ghost guns even allowed to be purchased? Because they are actual guns. They do the same amount of damage. They fire the same. They work the same. So talk to us briefly about the piece that gets them around federal gun laws, basically.
Yeah, it's a really nuanced interpretation. So under federal law, the part of the firearm that's actually regulated is the frame or receiver, which contains all of the operating parts of the firing mechanism. And that's the part that needs to be serialized under federal law, the part that allows an FFL to run an NICS background check, the part that requires a background check to purchase. But because of how the ATF has interpreted that term up till now, well, frame or receiver up till now, when a frame or receiver is unfinished, even by a small amount, it is deemed not to be a firearm and can be sold completely unregulated, unserialized, and without a background check. The idea was, I think, that these parts had not yet reached the stage of being a firearm. And at the time, there wasn't this industry kind of engaging in the sale of these parts, allowing people to build their own guns. But in recent years, we've seen this industry explode, really initially in response to strong gun laws in California, but now all across the country. Because building your own firearms using these unregulated parts it's legal. And as noted, you don't need a background check. And in fact, purchasing these parts, even if you are prohibited, is technically legal. So I think companies caught on and realized there was a huge market for ghost gun kits and parts. And now if you Google ghost guns, you will have dozens, if not more, of websites pop up. And if you go to a gun show, you will see table after table of ghost gun kits and parts to purchase. And the industry has evolved. They've made it even easier for consumers to make their own guns by packaging the frames or receivers and kits that include everything else needed to build a gun, including the jig, which shows you where to drill the holes, and even the drill bits. All you really need is a hand drill. And I haven't built one myself, but I have heard that using these kits, ghost guns can be assembled in less than 30 minutes. So it's really important to take action to target those initial sales and ensure that these unregulated parts and kits, which are essentially guns, can't be sold in the first place.
Absolutely. It was fascinating to me. I think the first time I heard about ghost guns was sometime last year. And I believe I cover our gun violence prevention work. So I saw about it first in media. And then my husband came home one night and ran into a coworker who was able to do this. And I told him, yeah, this is a thing and it's really bad. We're seeing these crop up all over the place. So thank you for that explanation, because I think a lot of people don't understand the nuanced loophole that it is. And that's very helpful in sharing how important AB 286 is in Nevada. So how will AB 286 intersect with President Biden's proposed actions concerning ghost guns?
Absolutely. We're really excited about the proposed regulation. We think, it really goes far in, reinterpreting the term frames and receivers. Essentially, it would function to treat unframes and receivers as firearms, meaning they will be serialized before the initial sale and require a background check. This law will actually work really well. Our law here in Nevada will work really well with the proposed rule. The bill as written will account for that. And if and when the regulation goes into effect, people will be allowed to purchase these then serialized unfinished frames and receivers with a background check from a gun dealer. These won't be ghost guns. I will say this bill goes a step further in a way that the regulation simply cannot, because it's a regulation and it's not legislation. This bill goes further by dealing with existing ghost guns in circulation. The bill allows a time period for people to dispose of them and then creates kind of a prohibition on the possession of the existing ghost guns. But I think it's really important that the legislation here goes further and tackles the issue of the existing ghost guns, because I think there's a lot of them. So I think the regulation is a huge step forward, but I also think it's really important that states and localities continue to take aggressive action against ghost guns. And again, my compliments to the Assemblywoman here for doing that here.
Absolutely. I am so grateful to her for putting this bill forward right now. We have to deal with it. We can't wait 2 years. If we wait 2 years, it's going to be so many more thousands of tragedies that we see because of this loophole. Okay, so next, thank you so much, Tanya. I'm sure we will have tons more questions for you. Next, I would like to go to Stefan Abrams. He's with Brady's Team Enough, and he is actually going to be shown in a video I'm going to play for you all, purchasing a ghost gun at the age of 17. I know that is shocking to people. It was shocking to me that that is allowed, that that is a thing. And so that's one of the reasons, one of the many reasons we have pushed AB 286 so much, is that this bill will stop that, because currently prohibited people, including children and teens and other prohibited people, are able to purchase these free and clear. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to mute myself now so you all can just hear the video. Give me 1 minute.
Amber, I believe you're since you're muted, the audio will not play. Let's try again.
Let's try that again. If I'm muted, it won't play. I apologize all. Thank you for bearing with me. I have a 5-month-old, so I like to mute myself when I can, because he tends to get fussy. 1 second. Here we go.
I've heard it's really easy to buy ghost gun kits online, and today I'm going to find out how easy it really is. So first off, I'm going to be doing a quick Google search of just ghost guns and seeing what pops up. Now that I'm on the website, I'm going to go to the 80% pistol frame kits, because that's what I'm looking to purchase. Here you see this item is out of stock. I got another one out of stock.
You know, I want to see these kits treated as firearms under the Gun Control Act.
I just purchased the frame kit, super easy. Put in my billing information, put in my shipping information. It'll come to me in a few days. It's really that simple. This is the slide, this is the barrel, this is the slide spring, and as I said, this is the lower receiver. And now I have to do very light assembly here. Like, these are not complex tools. I can just find a video online of how to do it and just follow the video. That's all it would take to assemble a untraceable 9mm handgun.
Okay. Isn't that absolutely crazy? So I would like to bring on Stefan so he can talk a little bit about that experience, and then we can get to a couple questions. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so as Tanya said, I am that teenager that she was referring to. I'm 18 years old now, but when I was 17, a minor, I was able to put all my information in, and I was able to ship all the pieces needed to create a ghost gun directly to my front porch. It's actually funny. My mom actually accidentally opened one of the packages. She was like, "Oh, I can't believe you're doing this project." Like, it was really that easy. And Amber, you even said that you had a young child at home. You could put their information in to these websites and buy it under their name. It is appalling. I mean, Tanya even said, alluded to how easy it was, but while I was doing this project, I tried to actually go on Amazon. I tried to purchase a mug for a friend as a gag gift for their birthday, and I was unable to do so. But I was able to send all the pieces I needed to create a Glock 17 directly to my house. It's insane, and thank you for sharing my story, and it shows why this legislation is so important. Ghost guns are an issue that is affecting communities across this country. In my own community here in San Diego, last month there was a shooting, mass shooting, where 5 people were shot and 1 person was killed, unfortunately, in one of the busiest districts downtown. We are also seeing more data come out from the police saying that they increases up to 3 times each month compared to previous years of ghost guns being recovered. And the dangerous thing is these are the ones that are being recovered. We have no idea how many of these are surfacing, and the industry only makes it easier for more and more people to have them.
That is a great point. We really do not have any idea the exact number of ghost guns that are out there because they're not serialized. It's near impossible to get that number. So that's a really important point because what we are seeing is 300% increases in various things, 700 found in this city. I could go on, but for every one that we find, we have to assume that there are many more out there because this is very, very popular. And yes, I do. I have a 5-month-old at home. I also have a 13-year-old at home who is very internet savvy and does all of those things and should not have a handgun at all. She should not.
So, you think that our argument would be simple enough that minors should not have handguns, but
you would think because I'm old enough to remember certain things being banned or changed because I'm dating myself a little bit, but because children were impacted or could be impacted or died. And guns have consistently been something that we have struggled to get legislation approved on and passed. And it's a fascinating problem in the US. It really is. Stefan, talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on the ease with which, and you have already, do you think that these ghost guns are designed solely to be easy to purchase and solely to get at prohibited people? Or do you think it's just an exploitation of that market?
It's definitely an exploitation. It's really interesting because their argument is always, these are just chunks of metal. These are just pieces of metal and plastic. I had all the pieces in my hand, and it looks like a firearm and it shoots like a firearm too. And what the opposition will also tell you is that it's not as easy to build. You need advanced training. They are lying. I could also use a piece of sandpaper and drill the top parts off that I need to while watching TV in 30 minutes. They show you exactly where to drill, and online you can find different methods of how you can create these as well. They also sell these things called ghost gunners, where you put that lower frame into this thing. It looks like a cassette tape. I know what it looks like. I've never seen a cassette tape in real life, but you basically put it in, and what do? You plug it into your computer, you run a program, it drills it perfectly. But I also want to add that these things are dummy proof. You don't have to drill them perfectly. They're designed for people with little experience. They want to sell as many of these as possible as well. So that's what they're doing. And unfortunately, there's videos on YouTube of kids my age and even younger than me showing how to design them and make them even look cool. That's how big of a problem this is that people can actually show people how to make them look cool online. It's dangerous, and no minor should be able to purchase a firearm. They knew nothing about me. They knew nothing about my mental health. They knew nothing about my previous record. That is extremely dangerous and extremely alarming, and every parent should be afraid of that as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I grew up in a hunting family, so my family hunted. I grew up around guns, and I know that I was taught from a very young age how to handle a gun and what a responsibility it was, and that it was not a toy, it's not a plaything. You don't point it at people, you don't mess around with them. There was sort of a respect that was instilled in me for the power that weapon has to do damage to other people or animals, right? Because I came from a massive hunting family. And I don't even like venison. I don't. Go ahead.
And we want to protect the rights of gun owners that want to do things the right way, who keep their guns locked safely and teach safe practices. And I just want to quickly add that someone said in the chat that about like what I put in for my birth date. They don't ask for that. There's some websites that might ask, are you over the age of 18? I could just click yes, but most do not have any age verification. They know nothing about me besides where they need to ship it to. It's ridiculous.
Wow. See, I thought maybe they asked for an age, but it just didn't matter. But I guess if it doesn't matter, you don't ask for it, because why ask for it at that point?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That is just terrible. I think you've hit on this a little bit. Do you think that these guns are marketed to be easy to purchase by pretty much anyone? I think obviously the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You said.
They're modeled. They teach you how to make them. There's nothing out there that's left for them to decide. You don't need advanced tools or anything. It's really ridiculous. And I had it in my hands, I had all the pieces in my hands. I knew exactly what I needed to do to make that a functioning firearm. And it's ridiculous how easy it is. So their argument is that they're just selling pieces of metal. But we all know that what damage it can really do and how they've been used. And we'll continue to see them, unfortunately, be used in crimes as the weapon of choice, because they're super popular now. And on the streets or in neighborhoods where they're selling them on the black market, the prices of them are increasing because they are extremely popular. But they're untraceable, so that's why it's the weapon of choice.
It's really the perfect storm, unfortunately, I think that we're seeing. So right now I want to move over to Carl Catarata. He is an advocate and a gun violence prevention survivor. I've had conversations with him about this bill, and he is absolutely fantastic. So Carl, can you tell us briefly about your gun violence prevention story?
Hey, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, Amber, for the opportunity. My name is Carl, and hello and good evening. I have the opportunity to live here in Nevada, actually in Henderson, Nevada. And I'm actually a former organizer with the March for Our Lives movement here in Las Vegas, Nevada. But first, before I go into my story, I want to thank the folks who have been doing the work on the ground. I see here Amber, I see there's Alex, I see there's Will from Battleborn Progress and Assemblywoman Sandra Hadiki. And most importantly, I see here in the chat, Moms Demand Action. I see Teresa Crawford, Claire Hooper, and then also from the Brady Campaign to End Gun Violence, and Stefan as well for sharing your story. When it comes to ghost guns, specifically here in Nevada, I come from a long family of responsible gun owners. When I was born and raised in Eastside Las Vegas, my dad taught me how to shoot weapons and, shoot hunting rifles. And one of the things that I want to piggyback on what Amber had noted is that, there is a responsibility. There's both a duty and responsibility to be safe when it comes to these specific weapons. And I think, when we come to common ground on the Second Amendment, and when we come to common ground when it comes to guns and gun safety, we all want to make sure that our communities are safe, specifically here in Nevada. So to answer Amber's question, my background started when it comes to gun safety was I was actually at a Walmart, and I'm not sure if many Nevadans on the chat here today remember, but two brave Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department officers were gunned down at a local CC's Pizza, and these anti-government conspiracy folks walked into the Walmart and just started shooting, right? This type of recklessness, this type of illegality is something that we need to make sure that it never happens again in our community. And when it comes to the issue on ghost guns, and I see here in the chat when someone had mentioned, what's the point of regulating them? Well, that's the purpose of government. I work in government. The government has a responsibility to protect the safety of its constituents and citizens. And I hope that my experience as a gun violence survivor, having to pull my family out of that Walmart and also having to pull the fire alarm to make sure that folks are safe in that Walmart is something that I'm able to contribute here today. So thank you so much, Amber, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that with us and sharing a little bit about what you do and how you came to be so passionate about this issue. What next steps do you think Nevada can or should take related to gun violence prevention? Obviously, we want to get AB286 off the Senate floor and signed by the governor. But beyond that, what would you like to see? How would you like to see us move forward?
Yeah, and thank you for the question, Amber. Again, ghost guns, unregulated, untraceable, and they're dangerous, right? And the bottom line is that Nevada needs to stop the carnage when it comes to these unregulated weapons. They don't contain serial numbers. They are sold on the internet, as Stefan had mentioned. And sadly, Nevada is home to one of the largest dealers of those, Polymer 80. I know that somebody in the chat had mentioned when it comes to this law, will that be something that's regulated? One of the things that I'm very passionate about is I have the opportunity on my full-time job to work in local government. And, I'm a young person, I'm a part of the growing number of young people that want to make sure that not only are our communities safe, but also making sure that we are doing it in an accountable, respectable, and responsible manner. And that includes making sure that we include our local government. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is, as someone had mentioned in the chat, Polymer 80, making sure that when it comes to that business's business license, they are making sure that they are operating in the most accountable fashion in, I'm not sure which specific county here in Nevada that they're in, because, working in local government, making sure that our businesses are adhering to the law and adhering to the ordinances and policies that are voted and set forth. And I remember from March for Our Lives, I remember all of the Nevadans who showed up that day when it comes to sensible gun safety. And there's no other answer that I would have other than to making sure that businesses like Polymer 80 are held to account when it comes to untraceable, dangerous weapons.
I fully agree. So Polymer 80 is actually in Dayton, Nevada. So they're up here in the north. I'm not terribly surprised by that, I will say. And what they've been able to do is they've really been able to capitalize on a loophole that not very many people knew about and not very many people were paying attention to expand their base of people that they can sell these firearms to. So that's a crucial part of why AB 286 is so important. And just for a moment, I'd like to go back to Tanya because she has talked specifically about Polymer 80 quite a bit and about how this bill will impact their sales or what they're able to do. So Tanya, could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, we know or believe just based on all of the data that we've seen that Polymer 80 is absolutely the biggest, if not, one of the biggest, if not the biggest manufacturer and seller of ghost gun kits and parts in the US. They have been recovered in huge numbers all over in different cities. We've seen them, where you don't really see other manufacturers named, you do see Polymer 80 named. So in California, in Los Angeles, for example, they recovered 700 Polymer 80 firearms, ghost guns, just in 2020. In Baltimore, there's a big number, and I think they found one Polymer 80 firearm in a child as young as 14. So, they've been sued by several cities because of this action, and they actually were also raided by the ATF. So they certainly are a bad actor in this space. What I will say is we do think, this bill, this piece of legislation will bar them from selling or engaging in the sale of unfinished frames or receivers. However, they are licensed firearms. They are federal firearms licensees. They are manufacturers under federal law. So they are and could just change their business model just slightly, finish their frames and receivers and sell those very legally. Also, if the regulation goes into effect, they will be able to sell unfinished frames or receivers. However, they will have to be serialized. They will have to go, the sales will have to go through an FFL, and there will have to be a background check. So I don't think functionally this will actually put Polymer 80 out of business. I think that they have a lot of alternatives to continue in a responsible business practice, but it will bar them from engaging in the sale of unregulated, unserialized, unfinished frames and receivers all over the country, which is very important.
And the goal is not to put Polymer 80 out of business, but I mean, we don't care if you make your own firearm at home as long as it's serialized and you go through a background check. This is just common sense stuff that we're fighting for here.
It really is. And that is the key, right? Is we want to make sure that anybody who's able to buy a kit to home build a gun, or anybody who is able to purchase a gun, has to go through the existing gun laws that we have all agreed are fair and reasonable. And I think that is one of the biggest key points about this bill, is these should be treated as regular firearms. There is no difference. So like right now, I would like to go to Christiane Brown. She is a very good friend of mine, and she basically runs the Brady Northern Nevada chapter. She's the co-leader with another good friend of mine. So Christiane, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what pushed you to work on gun violence prevention?
Okay, first I do want to add Heather Sallin is my co-president with Brady, Nevada, and an amazing person. She actually did start our chapter after being in the Las Vegas shooting. Heather and I have been friends since we were kindergarten moms together, and put on harvest festivals and did those kinds of things. And then suddenly we're working on gun safety together, which is just an amazing arc for both of us. But for me, gun violence and gun safety advocacy has been a part of my life since I can remember, since I was very little. One of my strongest memories was the shooting of President Kennedy. I was only 3 years old, but I was playing on the floor in front of the television set, and my mother and her friend were folding laundry and drinking coffee and laughing. And all of a sudden the bulletin came on, and they both got up and started screaming and crying. And it was the first time I'd ever seen an adult cry, so that is such a thing to happen to you, so traumatic as a child. And asking my mom, what happened? And she said, the president's been shot. I mean, even as I'm talking about it now, I have chills on my arm. The next thing that I remember really strongly was the funeral and watching the little boy, John, and my mom saying, you and he are the same age. And, that kind of thing. Then came Martin Luther King being shot. And my parents were big advocates and activists. I came from that kind of a family where there was sort of the mindset, if there's a problem and you're not doing something about it, you're part of the problem. So, that was just always how we thought. And when Martin Luther King was going around the country speaking for civil rights and against racism, that was when I learned about racism and what it meant, and that there were some people who actually didn't like other people because of the color of their skin. And they had said, this man, though, he is going to fix it. He is going to get people to come together because peace and love makes a difference. And he was killed. And we went to our church that weekend following, and we were part of a neighborhood church in the 1960s. And we're told, well, the minister didn't say anything about it at all. And there was a break, and my mother went up to him because she was part of the church. And she said, you haven't said anything about this horrible assassination that went on. And he said, it's not that important. And we stopped going to church that day, and our family never went back. So pivotal moments because of gun violence. The next one was Bobby Kennedy running for president. And my parents were both on his campaign and working in San Mateo County, and we had Kennedy signs and handouts and paraphernalia. I got to go to the airport to meet him and shook his hand. And then the call came, we'd all gone to bed, and suddenly the phone started ringing about 10:30 at night, and my mother answered it. It was right next to my room, the kitchen, and she started yelling, don't lie to me. Why would you lie to me? Why would you ever say something like that has happened? And we turned on the TV, and Bobby Kennedy was shot. So my parents started advocating for gun safety then, and that was in 1968, and I was 8 years old at that time. And we went door to door, and we got petitions signed, and I just want to show a photograph. So I don't know if you can see this on my, Probably not because of my Brady thing. Shoot, there it is, if I can turn it. This is my father. Oh, darn it. There it is. No, I can't do it. This is, anyway, this is a picture of my father in 1968 with a stack of petitions, getting them signed, signed petitions, handing them over to Congressman Pete McCloskey. And that led to the Gun Control Act of 1968. So gun safety has been a part of my life since I can remember. I became a political broadcaster, and 2 of my broadcasts involved me announcing that John Lennon had been killed and announcing that Reagan had been shot. So that was before all of these mass shootings started. That was before we repealed, you know, the assault weapons ban. That was before this level of craziness. And it's unbelievable to me that over that many years, we're still kind of at the same stage. So that's my background with Brady, long story, but it really, it's really amazing to me to have everybody on this call and everybody here right now. One thing, when we started Brady, when Heather and I started Brady, and I wanted to also acknowledge Ann Lawton, who is part of Brady, Nevada, down in Southern California. When we started having our own meetings, and we found out that everybody else was going to everybody else's meetings. So the moms people were going to our meetings, and we were going to the Nevada Gun Safety Coalition meetings, and they were going to the Indivisible meetings. So we started meeting together, and we started working together because we're all in this together, and this issue affects everybody. It's so important. And I just wanted to really quickly mention the testimony that I gave and the AB286 Judiciary Committee meeting that we had the other day. And it was so interesting to listen to Ira Hansen. And I think probably most people on this call know who he is. And he has a 100% rating from the NRA. He actually walked out of that hearing with the man who spoke from the NRA, which was interesting to see. But more important than that, the next time there's a hearing on gun safety, what I'd love everybody on this call to do is look up all of the arguments that the NRA and the people who don't want any kind of gun laws want to make against gun safety, and it is the same every time. And Ira Hansen's arguments were the exact ones that are printed out. They're the exact ones that all of them give, and they're always wrong. They're always incorrect. So it's really pretty easy to go back at them and say, what you're saying is not true. One of Ira Hansen's arguments was, what about Washington, D.C. and New York? And what about Chicago? And they have so much higher rates of gun violence, and they have some of the best gun laws in the world. Well, actually, it's a per capita thing. You see, they have bigger populations there. So of course, their numbers are going to be higher, but when you look at it as a percentage of people, they are actually far lower. Statistics show that gun safety laws do work. That's a standard one that comes out all the time. The other one is, what about us responsible gun owners? You're penalizing responsible gun owners by putting laws in place that will keep us from being able to build a ghost gun as a child at home. You know, what about all of us who are being penalized? They always do that. They always shout their Second Amendment rights. Well, you know, as Assemblywoman Hadiki said, maybe Congresswoman, maybe someday, Assemblywoman Hadiki said, you know, drunk driving laws don't stop everybody, but you want to stop the one. You know, laws are in place for seatbelts. They don't save everybody. Not everybody wears them, but you want to stop the one. The argument that you don't do anything because it doesn't stop everything is an absurd argument. It's made all the time, and it's so easy to refute. So these guys are not the sharpest tools in the shed. They're easy to fight back against. They're very simple-minded, and they're going down to, by the way, the NRA is going down. I hope you guys have all heard about the lawsuit going on in New York, and the fact that they were just denied their bogus bankruptcy claim because they spent all their money on yachts and things like that. So hopefully their members are going to start to notice what they're all about too. But this bill, super important. We could be one of the most important states in the country passing AB 286. And I just wanted to mention to Tanya, I wanted to ask you, Tanya, just really quickly to explain why this ghost gun law is so strong in Nevada, one of the strongest in the nation, because there are 8 states that have done it, but ours will be really strong.
Yeah, sorry, I'll jump in really quickly. And yeah, there are other states that have taken action, and I applaud each state for taking action where, you know, the federal government has failed to. So, but this is one of, I would say, the top 3 in terms of really taking aggressive action to prevent, you know, the initial sale of the unfinished frame or receiver, to prevent parties from actually building on guns using unfinished frames or receivers that are unserialized, and then even that last step to bar the possession of existing ghost guns. So it's a very comprehensive bill. And because it also will affect the sales of polymer 80, the implications are going to be nationwide, going to be felt nationwide, which can't really be said for any of the other ghost gun bills. So in some ways, this is really the most meaningful ghost gun bill that has the potential to pass. So again, we just need to ask everybody to continue to support it and get it across the finish line.
So I'm gonna jump in. Thank you so much, Tanya, and thank you, Christiane. Your story is absolutely incredible, and I did not even know all of that. So I'm very happy that you shared that with us. I would like to go to a couple viewer questions really quick, because one of them is from our viewer, and he or she, sorry, is asking, what does "it's heading to Senate general file" mean? And I feel like that one is particularly important because not everybody understands the lingo and all that stuff. So heading to general file means that it will be headed for a full Senate vote. If it passes that full Senate vote, then we can move on to the gov signing it. So it's important that we get it off general file, voted on, passed, and then to the governor's desk. I hope that makes more sense. If not, you can ask a clarifying question and we will try to get to it. Part of how we are trying to push folks to get there and to get it up for a vote, meaning that the full Senate would vote on it, is having folks call their senators. So call your senator. Hey, AB286 is really important to me. Please take a vote on it and please support this bill. Messaging like that is totally appropriate, and you can call them with our tool. It makes it super, super easy. Christiane, I'll come back to you for a minute because I had another question for you. Do you think Nevada can continue to lead on gun violence prevention? Because we really are leading right now with Assembly Bill 286. So I want you to talk a little bit about your thoughts on us continuing to lead gun violence prevention legislation and work within the state.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously the biggest problem right now is that we're in a place of non-reality. We're in a place where stupid, bogus arguments are being upheld almost as high as things that are the truth. So we're going to be having to fight disinformation, a lot of it. And when you talked about people calling their senators and saying, I really want you to support this bill, that's not just a side suggestion. For every single gun safety bill that goes up, 10-to-1 with people from the NRA-backed groups calling to shout down the bill. They don't win, but they call. They've got their people mobilized. They pay their people, some of them, to make these calls. And so if you want to show what real citizens who live here and who care about our state feel, make sure that you call, make sure you get your friends to call. It doesn't take long. And even go on the opinion page. It takes a couple of seconds to say, I have my opinion in favor of AB 286. That doesn't take long at all. And all you have to do is go legislature opinions. But to answer your question, I absolutely think that Nevada is rocking and rolling. We are leading the nation in gun safety. We're an amazing state. And I'm so proud to be here. I'm from the Bay Area, but I am so proud to be a Nevadan. I am so proud of what our state has done, what a few people have done who have mobilized and gotten together and stood up to spoken truth to power and stood up to these people.
Thank you. I had to unmute myself. Thank you so much for that, Christiane. My husband is actually also from the Bay Area, so I did not know that. Yeah, he's from the Bay. Side note. So right now I'd like to go to Carl for another question from our audience. I think it's a really good question. I'm going to read it for everyone. So to Carl, if you had one little thing wrong in a bakery, they would close you down. How come this state is allowing the sale of an item that is only intended to maim or kill, etc.? Makes no sense at all. Who is benefiting from the business? People are going there to work or sell things, the state or the county gov allowing this. So basically, who is benefiting from this business? And what are your thoughts on that?
My non-political, respectable political terminology would say criminals But I would also say those who are seeking to harm other folks, right? You know, I come from two specific pieces of Nevada. I come from a chamber of commerce. You know, I advocate for small businesses in my personal time, and then I also work in city government, and I've also worked in the federal government. So when it comes to the licensing of businesses, I would just disagree with a comment made earlier in this chat when it comes to, you know, we don't want to shut down businesses like Polymer 80. I actually did a couple of research when it comes to this company, and you know, there is actually lawsuits when it comes to this company from the California and Washington DC area. So I, as a Nevadan, I would not be in support of advocating for a business like this. I work at a local government. You know, we have respectable businesses that are law abiding. They are following the law. Wouldn't it be frustrating for you as a small business owner if you were, you know, following the law, and especially through COVID-19 and throughout the pandemic, you've been doing every single thing that the county and the city have been doing when it comes to mask regulations, making sure that your business is safe, making sure that you're following the law and the ordinances that the county and city prescribe to you. And, you know, there are businesses that are breaking the law. What happens to that? In my job, we call code enforcement. Code enforcement is the appropriate division at the local authority level to handle these items, and which is why I'm so thankful that the Assemblywoman is bringing up this essential legislation to address it at the state level. Because when it comes to pieces of situations like this, I would not be in support of businesses that are trying to go around these specific loopholes, which is why we're having this conversation here today. So Helene, I really appreciate this conversation when it comes to, you know, what happens when a business is not abiding by the law? Well, as a country of law and order, we have to make sure that we are following law and order. So that's how I would answer the question. If anyone else, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Well, we're not fighting a business. We're not trying to put anyone out of business, but we're fighting people who profit off of the death of people, and that's scary. When you call your legislator and you talk to them about this bill, let them know what is the price of a human life, of a mother grieving, because that's what's at stake here. Is we need to save lives, and what's happening is when these ghost guns are used in crimes, we have no ability to end that cycle of violence. We have seen the cycle of violence in communities across this country be exacerbated tremendously, unfortunately, over the course of the pandemic. And unfortunately, and we saw a record year in ghost gun recoveries, and also it's demonstrated on their website when it's super hard to actually buy these kits because they're all sold out. It's all about money. We are not being paid millions of dollars to be defending gun control or gun violence prevention. We are here to save lives, and that's what we like to do, and that's what our advocates want to see in their communities, because they're tired of losing people to this epidemic. It's a public health crisis, and this is a really big action that Nevada can take, not only to save lives in that state, but also in my state of California. We can make a huge impact with this legislation.
Thank you so much. I think those were really key points from everybody. So normally I would start wrapping up at this time, but I am ecstatic because we have our very own Assemblywoman Sandra Hadiki, who is just now joining us. I am so happy to have her with us. She is busy. So I cannot thank you enough, Assemblywoman, for being able to join us tonight. I know things kind of clashed, and we definitely did the best to accommodate you in your schedule, and I'm super stoked that you're here. So I will kick it over to you. Basically, talk to us a little bit about the bill and what motivated you to tackle ghost guns this session.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you so much, everyone. I know I am late to the roundtable. I thought I would be able to be on at 5, and then they scheduled a 5 o'clock floor session, but I'm happy that we were able to finish floor with enough time for me to jump on, because this is something obviously that's just as important to me as it is to every single person who's on this roundtable with us. And I have actually had the opportunity to work with quite a few people on this roundtable in 2019 when we tackled gun violence prevention. And that was a big, I think a big session for us in so many ways, because I think the work we did in 2019 was really the foundation for everything that we were able to do this session and everything we're going to be able to do in the future. I honestly firmly believe that session, we showed the state and the legislature that we're here to tackle gun violence prevention, and we're serious about it, and we're not going away. I really think that's what 2019 meant for us, doing background checks, and then the first bill that was heard and signed into law in February, and then with everything that we did with 291. And so really the genesis for ghost guns from this session started almost immediately after the 2019 session. I saw that Annette jumped on, so I really want to give her a big kudos, because she was really instrumental in getting the stakeholder groups started immediately after last session, where we started talking about what we were going to tackle this session. And it really changed, because our list of things that we wanted to possibly tackle this session started really long, talking about, what should we do? What do we think will be easily passed? And then also, what policies do we think are actually going to be really effective in reducing gun violence, right? Ultimately, that was our goal. Like, what's the most effective policy at reducing gun violence? And we had talked about, prohibiting stockpiling. We had talked about, once COVID started, hate crimes. We had talked about dealer licensing. Obviously, preemption at the beginning was on the table as one of our big priorities. But then as the pandemic started, I think the needs list changed a lot. And we kept having those stakeholder meetings, and we started looking at like, hey, what do we really need right now? What are the biggest issues? And ghost guns, the sale. We all know, and a lot of you were in the working groups, and a lot of you helped work on Assembly Bill 286. So that, ghost guns started increasing in sales, and ghost guns is the number one way people avoid background checks. People who can't buy guns buy ghost guns, right? Because there is no background check. Whether it's because you're not going to pass a background check, or whether it's because you're under the age. And so ghost guns, and then also we had talked about hate crimes, unfortunately they both didn't make it into the bill, but I think what we're doing is, I couldn't be more proud of the work we're doing with ghost guns. The fact that we actually introduced the bill and pioneered it before, we heard the conversation at a federal level made me proud of the work that we were doing.
Absolutely. And I can't thank you enough for championing this bill and getting it to the stage and assisting us with information and just helping make this a reality, because it really is a huge issue that we're facing. A lot of those initial meetings happened. I know the list was real long when we started. A lot of those meetings happened while I was on maternity leave, but I came back and we had a bill about 3 weeks in, and I was very excited about that.
Me too.
Go ahead.
Me too. I was very excited about it. And although we didn't get everything passed or even introduced that we wanted, I think if we get one policy every time we're in session, one bit, right? I think it's a huge win. I just don't think we can ever go a session without doing something. I think we let's get a little something. And Annette, we kind of talked about this as we were in the Senate side, but I ended my Senate presentation and closing remarks, thanking them, for hearing the bill and asking for their support and talking about all the great work we were going to do in the future. Because this isn't an issue that's going away. We're always going to need to work on it. And I think we're all here because we've all personally been affected, and that's why we champion the issue. And so I think until we can seriously do something to reduce gun violence, then this is going to be an issue that we're hopefully all working on together next session.
I fully agree. I think we have really set ourselves up to be able to continue to tackle gun violence prevention here in Nevada and to lead on it. We are seeing that, this bill was introduced and we were good and headed to do this prior to President Biden's remarks and his proposed actions. And I think that's really important because gun violence is such an issue here in Nevada and in our bordering states. So I think it is our responsibility to deal with it for our communities and for the people that visit here, for everyone. So Assemblywoman Hadiki, do you see this? I think you kind of answered this. Do you see this bill as a way to curb violence in Nevada and as a step toward creating better gun violence prevention policies overall?
Absolutely. We know that prohibited people buy ghost guns, right? People who are felons, people who might be a danger to themselves or others buy ghost guns because they can't pass a background check. I wouldn't say we don't know, but we don't know if Stephen Paddock used ghost guns when he committed the crime at 1 October, right? When he, over the course of 10 minutes, wounded nearly 500 people, shot 58 people. We're all familiar with those stats, but we know he had ghost guns, right? And so that's what we're trying to keep ghost guns out of the hands of prohibited people who can use them to cause harm to themselves or to others. So do I think ghost guns is a step in the direction of preventing gun violence? Absolutely. Requiring a background check for every single purchase is gonna keep hands out of the guns of prohibited people.
Absolutely. And thank you for that answer. I think that is crucial. So I'm going to go to
Amber, Can I jump in really quickly? Because I just saw something in the chat and I just want to.
Sure. I was
put this out
actually
there.
going to go to you for a question because I saw you jump on.
I will happily take a question. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It's so great to see so many of you. We appreciate you and we appreciate all of our guests joining us tonight. I apologize. I'm in the lobbyist room right now in the building. And so I can't be extremely loud. My earpods weren't working. Otherwise I would have joined earlier. David Lopez put in the chat about the Republican Party's press release on this bill, yada, yada, yada. There was also a crazy op-ed in the RJ this week too. I think people are confused about this bill, and I would highly encourage people to actually like sit down for 10 seconds and read the bill. So the two bills were separated as it came out of the assembly. Assemblywoman Hadiki led that charge. And so the stuff that, you know, the Republicans are talking about and all these other folks are talking about around covered premises and things like that, that's in a separate bill now. This Assembly Bill 286 is just ghost guns, just dealing with the prohibition of ghost guns. So still very supportive of the other piece of this, and we will work on that and have real policy discussions around that. But that's a totally separate conversation than the one we're having tonight, which is about Assembly Bill 286. So there's two different bills.
Absolutely. That is a crucial distinction to make. And thank you, Annette, because I do think some folks are a little confused about that. And we did see some crazy rhetoric happen this week about it. So I'd like to ask, we have a question about basically, what do we anticipate? Do we anticipate the governor will sign? So Annette, if you want to take that one.
I'm going to give that to the Assemblywoman. Let her take this.
Well, I think you guys will all be happy to know that about 2 weeks ago, I was at a meeting with the governor and he asked me when Ghost Guns was going to land on his desk to sign. So I think that's very positive, and I think he's very supportive. And we saw the governor. I mean, he's been great to us with gun violence prevention, and I'm grateful for his support of this issue. We saw that he came out early on after 1 October. He made it clear that he wanted Senate Bill 143 to be the first one to come across his desk in 2019, and that's the bill that implemented background checks. And he's very supportive of ghost guns. And so a big thank you to Governor Sisolak, and I think he's a great ally for us.
Absolutely, and I think that's wonderful news to hear that he was.
Oh, did you guys freeze, or did I freeze?
We can still hear you. You're good.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I think that's a wonderful thing to point out, and we thank you for that information. It's good to hear some positive stuff from the Gov on signing and on ghost guns in general. Annette, what do we think? How do we think the Senate feels about this bill?
Well, I'm actually waiting here to have a meeting with the Senate Majority Leader about this. So hopefully we'll be able to do that tonight at some point. But, you know, everything we've had, all of the meetings we've had have been super positive, and it feels like it's in a really good spot. It's moved to second reading tomorrow, which means it's moving through the process on the Senate floor now. And so I think we can anticipate a vote on this on general file, which is when they take the official vote in the Senate within the coming days. So we have to get it out of the Senate by Friday. So we need everybody calling their senators. We will send a link after this to everyone so you can call your senator, you can email your senator and tell them to support this bill. If I had to guess, I would suspect this gets out on party line, but I would love to encourage our Republican friends to vote for this bill because I think it's a good bill and I think they should want to, support gun violence prevention, and this bill does just that. And so this should be a nonpartisan issue, and hopefully we'll get some bipartisan support in the Senate.
I agree. I think that's really important, is the bipartisan support. I talked actually, Annette, before you were on, about how my family, I come from a hunting family, and how I was taught a lot about guns when I was very young, and about respect for guns and about the Second Amendment and all of those things. And I think those are crucial pieces to responsible gun ownership, is a healthy respect for them and knowledge about how they operate and the damage that they can do. Because frankly, a lot of the time what I'm hearing in the arguments against some of this legislation is that the gun doesn't kill people, people kill people. It's the same stuff that they recycle over and over and over again. And until we put more into mental health and until we address issues within our society more broadly, we're definitely going to need bills like AB286 that stop loopholes and curb some of this violence. So I want to just take a look through the chat really quick.
Yeah, and Amber, I can actually help you with that if you want, just to move through really quickly. And this kind of answers both Dave and Wendy's question. So the bill actually just dropped today for the prohibition of possession of a firearm on covered premises. And that new bill is coming out of the Senate. It will be a separate bill from this, like I said, and that is SB 452. So everybody can look that up. Again, completely separate bill than the Ghost Guns bill, which is AB 286. So SB 452, and we'll put it in the chat. So Dave, that will also answer your question. It doesn't make it illegal to carry almost anywhere. It's restricted to just hotels and properties on the Strip. So it's essentially the same language that the Assemblywoman took out of her bill in the amended form, and we're going to workshop that now and make some changes. We just didn't have enough time to keep it in AB 286 and get through the process. And so those two things were separated. And then, like I said, Sharon, we will send out all of the information after the call so you can have the link to call your senator. So we will make sure that that's done this evening or first thing in the morning.
I think that we can wrap. Annette, do you have any final thoughts? Assemblywoman, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I'm going to let this Assemblywoman close out, but I just have to say thank you to all of our friends on here. I couldn't do the work that I do in this building every day without every single one of you. The Assemblywoman has been such a champion on this issue, especially after, surviving such a horrific situation and stepping up and leading on that issue. That really takes guts. And so I'm so appreciative of you, Assemblywoman, for your leadership on this issue and your continued determination, because these bills are hard. If you've never worked on a gun bill, it's one of the hardest issues you can work on. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Amber for all your hard work putting this together, Christian for always partnering with us and being so great, Tanya, Carl, all of the fabulous folks who joined us tonight as panelists. We could not do this work without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But Assemblywoman, I'm going to turn it over to you for your final thoughts.
Thank you, Annette. And I think you said it best. Like, these bills are very difficult, and I'm really just the vehicle. I mean, this is an issue that's really affected all of us. And so I'm just the vehicle, and we do this all together. And I've said it, we do, because it's the leadership of every single one of us on here that collectively get together to move these bills forward. I couldn't do it without the legal experts, of Gifford, Brady, and Everytown, who were there to help answer those questions that, that only an attorney can answer. Stefana, I see you, but we played your video. I believe it was your video that we played during the hearing that really, really made an impactful, it was just, I can't even explain it. Like, I got messages from people on the committee saying just how impactful that video was, really showing how easy it is for someone to get a ghost gun. And to me, it wasn't just how easy it was. but that every single like ghost gun kit at almost every site you went to was sold out, and that's how quickly they are selling, right? And in a matter of minutes, you were able to purchase one. Christiane, for always being there too, and sharing your story and testifying, because again, you know, I'm just one voice, but this is an issue that affects all of us, and it's our voices collectively that make an impact. So thank you, Tanya, for helping and securing Steve, who I think just, I mean, his expertise in ghost guns and really showing them live and in person, and you know what they look like and how easy they are to purchase. I mean, that was great. And I know Giffords isn't on here, but having David Pacino on with us to really answer the questions and walk people through the bill, and Everytown as well for their support, and for all of the other advocates on here who are here. I know I saw Wendy's name pop up, and Carl. You know, we've all been personally impacted, and I just want to say thank you, because again, this is something we do together. Not one person can do this alone, because it's all of us reaching out to all of the electeds, all the grassroots stuff that really get this work done. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we can't thank you enough for being, as you say, the vehicle, because we could not get this done without you. I think it's crucial that we all work together, and that we make sure that we stay connected. So if you're on this event tonight and you want to get involved, I will be emailing folks either tonight or tomorrow. I will follow up with the video. I will follow up with how you get, you know, in contact with your senators and all of that stuff. So you will have my email. We can communicate back and forth, and we can work on these issues if we stick together. I think that's one of the most crucial parts about doing this work, is that we need to have a unified message, and we need to coordinate with folks, and we need to make sure that we're supporting each other, because it is absolutely imperative that we get these bills like AB 286 passed. We can't wait 2 years.
No.
So I'm going to close, and I want to thank everyone for attending, especially all of my speakers who were fantastic. You all did an amazing job, and I appreciate how easy you all were to work with. That always makes it super, super easy on our end. And thank you, Assemblywoman, for hopping on.
Thank you, guys. And I saw Teresa on there too. Teresa Crawford's always showing up as well. And then I didn't even thank you, Amber and Danette, because you guys are literally the glue that holds all the coalition groups together. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We like that. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening, and I hope everyone calls their senators and encourages them to vote AB 286 out and support it. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.